of the river going up to the top of the river, because it's the same, description. If the flow of the air from the ground to the sky to your elevation that you want to reach is the same as the bottom of the river to the top of the river, with probably a lesser degree of change as you go higher. But the fact is that if there's a current going against you, in what world is it better to go against it than with it, in the argument of efficiency and of saving money and of time and just making the job easier? Like, who goes against the grain?
You're not listening. That's the issue here.
I'm not listening to somebody say that it's better to go against the grain. Okay, please enlighten me.
No, you're not listening to think that there is, like, if you think that's what I'm saying is why he's saying that's you're not listening. If you were listening and following what mine and Negator's point here is, you wouldn't have said that. It would have been a nonsensical thing to say.
I heard you said going upstream is the same as going downstream. That's what I heard you say.
The example I gave is if the river were, let's say you're all living on a river, you're all in floating houses on the river. What I'm saying is there's no advantage energetically in terms of money I save on my outboard motor to visit Donnie downstream because he's downstream, or to visit Uppy upstream because that's the way the Earth's moving past me, if we're all flowing at the same pace. So that's why I was saying there is no advantage if we're all on the river for going up or down.
It sounds like you're saying though that you're on a river that has no current though. Like that doesn't make sense.
There is no current relative to you and the other people on the river.
Yeah, but there is compared to space. So if you're sending a rocket that goes into space, which is where this started, then suddenly, yeah, it does matter. You're imparting extra momentum to this very heavy, expensive, difficult to fuel rocket by flinging it eastwards.
So then wouldn't it make sense to go with the flow of it than against it? And I think that's what they were trying to say.
Yeah, for rockets, absolutely. Yeah, you bang on. That's why they do that with rockets. That's why virtually every rocket launch, I'm sure there's some exceptions if they, for some bizarre reason, want to.
But hold on though. When they launch off of, let's say, Cape Canaveral, they head east, which would be against the rotation, no?
No, they're getting free extra energy from the rotation. So yeah, the Earth's turning
in your model. In your model, like that's going against the current, though, right? It's going against the current.
It's like shooting a gun or throwing a ball, let's say, throwing a ball out of a car that's already moving forwards. To the people in the car, you threw it at 30 miles an hour or something. It's a pretty ordinary throw. But because the car was already going 100 miles an hour, the ball to the outside observer, to the space, to the bank in our other analogy, I'm sorry, we're getting too many analogies now, would be going at 130 miles an hour. So you're getting extra oomph by going east.
So okay, so you're saying it. So how about when they shoot? How about when they shoot from? Hold on. How about when they shoot from over here in Vandenberg and they head west? Why are they just not being efficient this time on the West Coast, but on the East Coast they are?
No,
because
they could. I mean, there could be other factors like.
No. I'll tell you the factor is because they like to shoot them over the middle of the ocean to where when it comes back down, they could gather it. That's the reality of it.
Well,
they shoot them from.
Count the number of launches that are done and the number of missions that go west. As far as I know, there's fewer missions that go west.
Every launch that I've ever seen from Vandenberg on the West Coast always shoots it shoots into the middle of the ocean in the Pacific Ocean. And then every time you look at Vandenberg base, they always shoot east because it goes in the middle of the ocean of the Atlantic. Is that not ringing a bell in your guys' head? Like, hello, it has nothing to do with we get better, we're not less drag, or we could be efficient because of the air because we're launching in orbit. No, it's because they're sending it to the middle of the freaking ocean. So when it comes back down and falls.
Look at the mission that they're trying to.
Can you tell me the launch site again so I can do some Googling?
Vandenberg's on the West Coast, and then the other one is on the East Coast in Florida.
Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, Cape Canaveral is in Florida.
And is the Wallops Island one up by me.
I'm sure there's other ones, but they always launch into the ocean. Always.
Yes,
Doesn't matter.
because you don't want to have spaceships crashing on people, and we have this nice rocket base over on the West Coast. We can use that for advantage. Like with GPS, you have to have satellites that go in a westerly trajectory sometimes, and on the East Coast, you can launch them and get them to go on the easterly one. The ones that go on the westerly coast are more expensive to launch because you have to put more fuel on them. And you got to get that extra 1,000 miles an hour of delta V to get it to stay in orbit.
What I've just found here is that launches from Vandenberg fly southward, allowing payloads to be placed in high inclination orbits such as polar or sun synchronous orbits. So yeah, that makes sense. Like the ISS is in a very inclined orbit, and there are polar orbits. So yeah, that can happen.
What's like a polar orbit mean?
Polar orbit means it's going straight up and down over the poles, whereas the cheapest orbit to get is equatorial, flat, straight, following the equator, going east. Whereas a polar orbit is much more expensive. You need delta V to get up that velocity to get you 24,000 meters per second, or whatever it is. But you also need to burn a chunk.
You know what's funny is south of Vandenberg base is just directly over the water. So it's like west to, let's say, it would be west to, let's say, San Diego or even down to Mexico. But it's because of the way it is on the map.
Right.
Up north, because Vandenberg's up north, up by Santa Barbara. It's up there, and
China launch all their rockets over land.
That is further. That is further west than, let's say, like Los Angeles, San Diego. So if you're saying it goes south from there, it's still going just straight over the water. And they always do.
The going over the water is something that both have an explanation for, right? Your explanation for why that happens is because I presume because they're shooting them into the ocean, picking them up, and they're not really going to space. But the quote unquote mainstream answer is we don't want to shoot heavy, fast moving objects over people's homes.
So fuck those in the islands, though, right?
But we'll fly commercial airliners over the United States.
Yeah.
They do deliberately avoid population centers until they land. Yeah.
We'll send 1,000 flights over your head per day, but not a rocket every 3 weeks.
I mean, also, let's compare how often does a commercial airliner explode midair?
Yeah.
That's what a rocket
don't have near the amount of energy in their tanks as a rocket does, and nor the ability to mix those chemicals together suddenly and violently. So you can burn up 10, 20, 30 houses with an airplane. With a rocket, you can blow up a neighborhood with a small town.
Yeah, I was breaking up while Elijah made his point earlier. The last thing he said about the analogy, I think, was spot on. I can't repeat it, but I tried to chime in because he said exactly what the problem is. And that is, again, that our immediate experience here on Earth with what we understand about physics and what we can experience with either angular momentum or linear momentum in a river, those provable, measurable, sensible, empirical realities conflict with the globe model claims that can explain things away when they create answers for an imaginary problem. You can, which is what Negator was doing. Well, what's the bank? Well, the bank is outer space. Like, you have to You have to assume the system that you're trying to prove. When we're saying our experience here on Earth conflicts with your entire system. Well, yeah, but if you're in our system, it's not going to be a problem. Just come on over here into our system, and then it's not a problem.
Well, Travis, isn't there a problem there? You deny all of the evidence of the things that we do with space, and then so we go to analogies and stuff to try and show you the model through more simple terminologies, because you're going to just deny the alternative, which is so verifiably provable thing that we call space that you don't like.
No. My rejection of space at face value is based precisely upon what I experience here on Earth.
What do you experience on Earth that's comparable to space?
I don't have to consider how you can explain. We just already talked. I'm just talking about your system in per se. Like, what I understand about the hydrostatics of water will, like, let's say, for instance, I don't fucking know. Like, if I were a tribesman out in the middle of the bush and I had a large body of water near me, and then you came along and said, "Hey, I'm from the Western civilization. Have you heard that we live on a globe? I have the good news of the Gospel of Werner von Braun, and here's a globe." I'll be like, no. See this lake here? This lake is horizontal, level, flat, equal elevation from the shoreline. From the shoreline, equal elevation from the shoreline. Therefore, that ball cannot exist.
Well, what we would do then is we would start showing him reciprocal zenith angles. We'd explain to him how geometry worked, and we'd say, "Okay, look at this."
He already explained to you what
I think I
geometry
was talking, but you may talk. Go ahead, have a ball. Goodbye.
I'm pretty sure you might have interrupted me when I was saying what I said. But go ahead.
No, it doesn't matter. No,
my point was his rebuttal to you was based on reciprocal angles and geometry, based on what he's known his whole life living next to this lake.
It sounds like your complaint is with the analogy and it not relating to reality, but it's your analogy. You want a different analogy, but it's just confusing to be like, I no longer like the analogy I made myself. Or your answers to it.
Yeah, nice twist. Yeah, I stop twisting my shit, man. That's not what I'm saying right now at this moment. Right now at this moment, I'm saying that our immediate experience in a physical world conflicts with every point of your model. I didn't make an analogy right now. I made no analogy.
But that's the whole thing we're discussing. How can you come up with an analogy that's meant to match reality when we don't? That's not our reality. Or it just sounds like gatekeeping and going, "Hey, let's discuss and debunk the globe," but there's no defending or talking about the globe because I've decided that's not reality. Like, what if we played the same game?
Oh my God! Fucking A, man.
I'm almost done. What if we played the same game and we just said you're not allowed to describe the flat Earth because it's not reality?
Okay, this is an example.
To explain why your upward refraction happens. We cannot entertain that and cannot have that discussion because it doesn't match reality. You'd immediately go, "Well, that's bullshit." Right?
Fuck me, man! You just keep talking.
Dude, shut the fuck up! You're literally a bitch. That was the first time that guy talked.
Hold on. Moyoc, you want to come back and make your point? Moyoc? Or not?
Okay, Harry. Moyoc brought up photos. He changed the discussion point. He brought up a photo. What if we come and show you? We can show you the Earth. And then I changed that to say, okay, let's pretend I'm a tribesman living next to a large body of water. My immediate understanding and experience all my life with that body of water would give me the grounds to stand on to say that globe you're showing me cannot.
Cut out.
You know what?
Did I miss something?
He just blew you away with that point.
Well, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, that's your loss.
Sounded like a cutout from my end, but I don't know.
You cut out, yeah.
Go again, Travis.
Where did I cut out? I had a phone call from work. Where did I cut out?
I don't know. That's what I thought. It didn't cut out. Do you want to just say the whole thing again?
You said, now look at this glow, and then cut out.
I was trying to say that I didn't.
Tribesman.
Okay, yeah. If I'm a tribesman living next to a large body of water, all my life I understand and I've experienced hydrostatic principles of water flow and water's equilibrium, stabilized water. If you then came along and said, "Hey, I'm from the Western civilization. I've got the good news of Werner von Braun. The Earth is a globe," I would say, "No, it's not. That water will never, ever do what you're showing me."
Sure.
Well, are you a tribesman?
People can be wrong. I don't know. Is this a question? Sure. I think people can be wrong, particularly the less information they've got, or less good they are at passing the information, or the less breadth of that. The less, I think one thing that appears to be a correlation amongst groups of people is their belief about the shape of the Earth seems to correlate with how much of the Earth they've travelled. And the greater distances they've travelled, particularly over water, the greater probability they come around to thinking the Earth's a globe.
Stationary and flat eggshells, that's what the vast majority of people experience on their earthly venture here. Stationary and flat, absolutely. We all agree.
Yeah.
Okay.